Hello, everybody. This is Ian Lamont, author of Lean Media and the founder of i30 Media Corporation. Today, I'm going to be doing the Amazon Deep Dive series, Building a Brand, building a publishing brand in particular. And this is part of a video series that includes several different elements, as shown here, covering different programs that can benefit publishers. A quick disclaimer, I don't work for Amazon, but I've used these programs over many years. It's up to you to make decisions about whether or not to try to use these particular programs. And also note that Amazon's terms may prevent you from using them. You also need to follow Amazon's terms or risk being excluded from Amazon services, and that's not a fun thing to happen. It's also possible to make money on these programs, but you can also lose money as well. So keep that in mind. There is real risk involved. But today I'm going to be talking more about the brand aspect of building a book brand on Amazon and just kind of in general. And for publishers, there's several characteristics that we think of when we're building a book brand. And this is my own definition. I'm not a professional marketer or brander or position, someone who knows all about positioning. But in my mind, these are the characteristics that make up a book brand. It's an identity built around some aspect of your publishing business. And that could be, I'll get into examples in a minute. It usually takes a long time to build up this identity and to kind of tune it to make it more effective. It usually starts with a single title, but then expands into other titles. It's recognizable to readers. I mean, that's kind of what a brand is. It's not just a brand because you say it's a brand. It's a brand because readers, they know what it is. And maybe when they see the brand, they'll actually be more likely to connect with it. They like it a lot. They'll buy more copies in the series, or they'll recommend it to other people. And these are things that you want. And it leads to all kinds of new opportunities, not only on Amazon, but outside of Amazon. And I'll discuss that in a minute. Some examples of a book brand is like an author-based brand, such as Agatha Christie or Walter Isaacson, who wrote the biography of Steve Jobs, Benjamin Franklin, etc. It could be a character, and this could be a character in a well-known book like Spencer for Hire. Do you remember that? Or the Agatha Christie series, the lead detective there, whose name I can't pronounce that well, but also for like kids' books, Clifford the Big Red Dog. That's a classic example of a book brand based on a character. A fiction series, it could be like an entire series. So the Song of Fire and Ice, that's the fantasy series that became Game of Thrones. Nonfiction series, How to Cook Everything. And this book by author Mark Bittman, if you go to the official How to Cook Everything website, you'll see it's not the only book there. They have a whole series of books that are based on the first title or kind of expanding from the first title. So how to bake everything, how to cook everything vegetarian, how to grill everything, etc. So they've really been the publisher has been very skilled at developing that into a brand based on a single popular title. Artwork. So Clifford the Big Red Dog, it's not just about the character, it's also about the artwork that's used. And people associate the brand with that style of artwork by the artist who drew it. And actually, once you have a certain style of artwork, it can be difficult to change that. It could be design elements. So, for instance, the For Dummies series, if you look at the books and ask yourself, what are the colors that show up on the For Dummies series? And you should kind of instinctively know it's black and yellow. And similarly, they can add other colors, but they can't take away black and yellow. That's kind of like the way that the For Dummies brand works. Logos, same thing. They have a logo that appears, I think, either on the front or on the spine or on the inside front cover of every book that they sell. It's kind of like a pencil-headed, kind of a nerdy guy, and that's like their logo. And trademarks, and so they've also developed a lot of different trademarks. The one that's most well known, though, is the For Dummies. So, I brought up all of these examples, and these are all examples of large publishing houses that have created these particular brands. And I did that for a reason. For one, they should be recognizable to everybody, but also to recognize that big publishers are actually pretty skilled at building brands, or at least some of them are. They don't put in the effort for a lot of their titles. They kind of want to see if it'll take off or it will start to resonate with people. But once it does, they're pretty skilled at kind of expanding and developing them. And some of them have taken decades to develop, such as the For Dummies, or for Clifford the Big Red Dog. I mean, that got a big boost because it was a TV series. And you may be thinking, well, all right, Ian, that's great. But what about independent publishers? Is there any possibilities for us? And I say, absolutely. So here is an example of an indie publishing brand. This is a series of books called Scary Tales Retold. It's by Red Chair Press. I'm using these with permission from the publisher. And the idea is they took these kind of classic fairy tales, but they put a little twist on them, and they're funny. So they make some funny aspect of it. So the kids at the end, instead of being a little scared or uneasy after reading these fairy tales, they actually can laugh with their as they read it, or if they share the story with their parents because there's something funny or a little gross there. And it's a really clever approach to this particular series. So that's part of the branding. The other part is the artwork. I mean, look at this artwork. It just looks funny looking at the picture there on the left with the vampire, and also on the right with the girl sleeping on all those mattresses. But this is also part of the brand. And then they have a logo. It's like a little skull, Scary Tales Retold. And this is something where they could actually trademark. Actually, I can see that they're trying to trademark Scary Tales Retold. So this could be turned into a really solid brand. It already is one, but I think it could even go further. So a great thing about this is once the kids or the parents read one of these books and they like it, it's easy for them to recognize it and to find other books in the series and kind of continue reading on because they know what to expect. And by the way, on that point, the publisher did something which is really important to the lean media framework. And just a little aside here. Lean media is basically the idea that you can develop something using feedback from real test audiences, or test readers in this case, before you ever even release it. So the publisher went out and actually they did kind of like focus group type exercises where they're talking with parents and watching kids and seeing how they react to the early editions of the book. And then based on what they learn, they're making improvements to the product itself and the packaging, etc. So the publisher was really clever about that. But it does, this particular series, it doesn't need to just stop at the series. I think it could actually become other types of products. Somebody suggested to me like you could actually make like a doll of that Dracula, or the girl that's sitting on the mattresses, or something else. Coloring books would also be a lot of fun. So there's possibilities for other types of ancillary products that could be developed based on this brand, and other brands to other opportunities to think about. Other media products based on the same brand. So I just said you could do a coloring book based on the Scary Tales Retold. For my own products, the cheat sheets that I mentioned earlier, they're actually based on the In 30 Minute series of guidebooks that I launched, more than 5 years ago. Spin-off brands, that's the same thing, where you have a product and then you spin something off of that. That's kind of related to it. Maybe using some of the same assets, such as the design elements, or characters. Like, if you're doing the big example here is Star Trek. You have the main Star Trek TV series, and then that spun off into other TV series, and it's still going strong, more than 50 years later. Merchandise, this could be something like a stuffed animal or a coffee cup. For my products, for instance, we released a book called Genealogy Basics in 30 Minutes. We have some merchandise that is actually genealogy sheets to track your ancestry, high quality forms. So that's an example of merchandise. Digital products could be a download. So one thing that we do have on our website for Easy Genie, those are the genealogy forms. We have a free digital download of one of the basic forms that people can get. And we also charge money for if you want the other types of forms in PDF format. And then I see a lot of indie publishers doing this. They have a brand based on their, it's just not just their book, it's them themselves. It's the author or their expertise. So the book showcases their expertise, but then they use that book to become like a calling card for the other types of expertise that they have. So I've done this for Lean Media. Like I've used this as kind of a platform for speaking engagements or consulting engagements, and this could be quite lucrative if you really want to ramp that up. And it could also be used as a basis for educational materials, depending on what you're publishing. So Scary Tales Retold, I don't know if that's good for a school environment. The teachers would have to evaluate that. But if it is, that's something where you could create lesson plans, maybe some sort of suggested reading assignments, or maybe you could do something kind of clever like compare Scary Tales with the original one. I don't know. There's all kinds of possibilities there. And then other types of services. So there was an example with one of the winners of the IBPA, Independent Book Publishers Association, Ben Franklin's Awards, a couple of years ago. A roofer published a really good book about roofing, the best practices for replacing or fixing your roof. And he knew all about it. And this is something where the book could actually be the basis of like offering, services. Like he could do evaluation services, maybe for people who own houses, but also for other types of contractors. I don't know what that would be, but you can really think outside of the box and think of how you could develop that. Now, if you want to develop your brand, of course, you'll need assets to make it work. And one is, if you're, for instance, doing an author-based brand, you'll need a platform. And when they say that in the publishing industry, that usually means social media presence, maybe speaking engagements, maybe some other aspects highlighting your expertise. That could be a website or something like that. So if you're just thinking, all right, I'm just going to print my book and I don't need to do any social media or no marketing, or I don't need a website, unfortunately, when it comes to brands, you need to fix that particular aspect of it because it's quite important. I already mentioned the website. Most publishers, they need to have a mailing list so they can connect with their true customers, and they need a way to drive people to that mailing list. Design assets could be something like the designs that you used for the cover, maybe the colors. So in the lower right corner of this presentation, you'll see Lean Media, that color red and that font used for Lean Media. That's part of my design, the design assets that I have. So when I create a new product, whether it's a digital download or a poster or anything, it will use those same design elements based on those assets. Trademarks is super important. There's in the United States, there's several different types of trademarks: design marks, word marks. They can also be on the secondary register or the principal registry. The principal registry, it gives you lots of power to like stop counterfeits, stop illegal, unauthorized goods from entering the United States, and also legal protections if something goes to court. But also on Amazon, if you have a trademark on the principal registry, you can get access to special services that other types of sellers don't get. So that's a pretty important thing to have. And then also to expand your brand, you may need relationships not only inside publishing, so printers, designers, etc., but also outside of publishing. So if you're manufacturing something, for instance, you need to find a manufacturer. That's a relationship you need to develop. And there's services that will help you, or you can use your own network to kind of spin that up. And then I mentioned earlier, if you have a trademark, you get special access to special Amazon programs once you register the trademark with Amazon. But even if you don't have a trademark, you can still highlight your brand on Amazon, develop new products, release them on Amazon, see how customers react to them, and then you can take that information back, the reaction from customers, or maybe what you've learned, or maybe you can iterate on that product and then start selling it elsewhere, or making it available to other types of customers outside of the Amazon ecosystem. For more information on the Amazon Deep Dive series, go to leanmedia.org, click on video, or connect with me on social media at the addresses shown there. Thank you so much for watching the series, and I look forward to hearing from you or seeing you at some point in the future.